Hey peeps, it's been 11 years. 11 long years since we've had original Silent Hill content. PT, the playable teaser for Silent Hills, came out in 2014, and I think it's one of, if not, the most scariest games ever made. Konami thought, hey, let's cancel that. They then went on to do some very, interesting things with the series after that, to say the least. Yeah, not our brightest days. But, in October of 2022, there was hope. They showed a trailer for Silent Hill 2 Remake, and they also teased a game called Silent Hill F. At the time, this game was definitely not being looked at because, holy moly, Silent Hill 2 was being remade. And to be honest, we didn't have much to go off. Some creepy music, pretty visuals, but we did know who was writing it. Ryakishi07. Real quick, not sure why there are numbers in his name, but it definitely adds to his aura. If you have never heard of this man, he was the writer for a little manga called When They Cry. If you've never heard of that, I suggest it stay that way. But that led the hype train for this, and now here we are with a game out. New Silent Hill content in 2025. Let's get spooked! And depressed, because that's usually how these games go. Before we start, I just want to say that I did get a review code for this game, but the code was for Steam. I only play everything on PlayStation 5. I emailed for like 2 weeks to see if I could get the PlayStation 5 code. Didn't go that way, so I just bought the game instead. It's Japan in the 1960s. You play as Hinako Shimizu, a high school student who tries to stay alive when her hometown becomes Silent Hilled with fog and all sorts of screwed up monsters. Now, this is a huge change for the series. These games have always been Japanese made, but taken place in America. Seeing as it's taken this long to get one set in the home country is actually pretty surprising, and I think it lets them do things that they've never done before. Hinako lives with her parents, who aren't the nicest to say the least, and she also has a tricky relationship with her friends Shu, Rinku, and Tsukiko. These relationships and the feelings they have towards Hanako make up a lot of the story. The very first talk with one of her friends will leave you confused and wondering more, and it only gets worse from there. Notes you find scattered around will show people's feelings towards Hanako, and along with her journal, makes the story so much larger. That very journal is very important to the story here, and will give you a look into what Hanako thinks about pretty much everything. This game is a lot, and from the moment you boot it up, you are greeted with an in-your-face warning explaining everything that you will be shown. It can be pretty stressful, but I think it's handled very well. This is a horror game after all. It's not meant to make you feel nice. The spooks in the sound design here do make me feel nice though. Not sure if I'm ever going to be able to look at scarecrows the same without thinking of this game. On your first playthrough, you're probably going to have no idea what's going on, and at times, it's going to leave you frustrated. One quarter of the game, you might think you have it all figured out, and then someone will say something and have you re-guessing everything. I do think it's very important to stick through to the end, because the conclusions you reach here are very worth it and rewarding. They had me thinking for days after. There's just so much you need to see here with the story. I wish I could tell it all, but I don't want to spoil. Whether it be sexism, how women are treated, rumors starting, faith, religion, health, medical issues, family issues. Lots and lots of family issues, that's for sure. There's a lot, and I just think it needs to be experienced. And without spoiling, New Game Plus straight up adds new cutscenes. They make it really easy to find the new stuff too, because right in the bottom left, it will show you if it's a new cutscene you haven't seen yet. I don't think I've ever seen this done before in a game, at least not to the extent it's done here. Now, being a high schooler, you don't exactly have much pack for your punch, so melee is all we got here. Gameplay is very 50-50. Sometimes I'm really enjoying it, and other times I think it's downright garbage. Hanako gets many different basic weapons to fight off the baddies here, and most of them go the same way. You have your standard light attacks, heavy attacks, and then some other little things like counters and perfect dodges. There's also a sanity meter that you can use for some even more special attacks, but if you lose all this, you can no longer focus. Hanako can level up her abilities, and I think this is done in a really cool way. Most of what you pick up can be sold in exchange for upgrade points, so if you're good enough, you won't need any of the items, thus making you more powerful. So overall, it's nothing too crazy. Pretty standard for Silent Hill, but you don't see James Sunderland doing what you do in this game, that's for sure. At first I thought having no ranged weapons was a big mistake, but when some things happen later in this game, It evens itself out and balances pretty nicely. It does seem to fall apart in some sections when you're facing multiple enemies, but that's also pretty standard Silent Hill. The enemy design, while really cool, does get a bit old. There's not that many different ones, and a few in particular are a pain in the backside to fight. I also don't like when bosses you've already faced become normal enemies. The bigger ones that are really cool don't do this, but still, not very fun. However, almost all the time, you can just run past most of the enemies, and I think the game heavily encourages it, to be honest. The core of what you'll be doing is split into two main areas. The normal town where you grew up, and the temple areas in which I'll just call the Shadow Realm. When you're in the town, I was loving it. It felt so cool to see everything slowly rotting away. But the Shadow Realm can get annoying. The best way I can describe is, you know in the end of Silent Hill 2 when you're in the labyrinth and you have no idea where you're going? I got those same feelings here. It just gets a bit too much. Puzzles are of course back, and I think for the most part they are great here. I played on the hard difficulty and I think almost all of them were very well done and required me to use my noggin. There was this one involving a box where you had to be showing symbols of what was sweet, and I was sitting there really confused, but not for the reason the game wanted me. Like, pies can be sweet, and are those leaves or grapes? And I've never even had a grape before. So is that class as sweet? I don't know. All the other ones are pretty good, but it does get a bit silly if you play on the hardest difficulty. For some of the puzzles, you might end up needing to know actual real life things. You think someone like me goes outside and knows things? Of course not. The only thing I know is trophies. Speaking of, mostly everything is hidden here, so I'll explain without spoiling. You got your typical story ones, which are kind of funny when you read them out of context. Like, the description for one of these is legit, wash before eating. I don't even remember what I got that for. You will need to complete the game on the hardest difficulty, but the trophies for beating each puzzle setting don't stack, so you'll need to beat it with the puzzle setting on story, then hard, then lost in the fog. This isn't too challenging because you can just use the internet, and I would recommend it on Lost in the Fog. Speaking of, the difficulty setting for that isn't too hard once you've gotten a hang of the combat and have better weapons. Every big boss has a certain trophy in which you'll need to do something very specific to the boss. Usually it's just not to get hit by a certain attack, but these change from boss to boss. If I had to guess, I would say that probably over half of the trophies in the game you'll need to be on New Game Plus and New Game Plus 2 to do. That includes collectibles. You'll need a lot of guides when at that point, but thankfully, once you know what you're doing, it's pretty easy to speed through the game. You'll need to get all the skills to the max level. Again, New Game Plus will be needed. Finally, the main thing you'll be doing here is getting all of the endings. There's 5 of them, and if you're smart with your saves, you'll only need to do 3 runs of the entire game. And that's about all I can say. I personally had a really unique experience with this one, because I wasn't enjoying my first playthrough very much. And then all of a sudden, something clicked, and I started loving it. So, I'm giving Silent Hill F an 8 out of 10. It takes huge steps for the franchise, and I can't wait to see what else we get. The game heavily encourages you to replay it, and you actively get rewarded for doing so. So I'm going to give the plat also an 8 out of 10. Finally, the difficulty really comes down to when you do your Lost in the Fog run. If you do it first, this could be about a 7 or an 8 out of 10 in difficulty. But if you're smart, I would say it's about a 5 out of 10. And that's it. Whoever made this game probably has a thing for foxes. That's cool, I guess.